All right, everybody. My name is Suke. Welcome to the Guitar Workshop. I want to talk a few quick ideas about how to just play over the blues using one shape. What do we do? First, once we're in a key of a blues, someone says, hey, we're just doing A blues. What does that mean? 3 chords, right? There's going to be a 1 chord, a 4 chord, and a 5 chord from the A. So A is 1. You can count the letters A, B, C, D is 4, E is 5. So A, D, and E are the 3 chords, and as a musician, you really need to know the 12-bar form internalized, meaning the standard form is 4 bars of the 1 chord, 2 bars of the 4 chord, back to 2 more bars of the 1 chord. That's the first 8, and it's almost all the 1 chord. The last 4 is considered the turnaround. There's some variation to it, but usually it goes 5, 4, 1, 5. You have to keep track of that in your head when you're playing, no matter what you're doing. If you're waiting for someone, if you're playing chords, if you're soloing, if you're singing, you'll feel it more. We often feel that turnaround when it happens. So when you play a blues, the lowest common denominator would be the minor pentatonic of the key you're in. So at the beginning there, that was an A blues, A, D, and E, and I was just using pattern 1. When you play a pentatonic like this in A from the A, it's acting like a minor pentatonic inherently. The intervals are root, flat 3, 4, 5, and flat 7. And then there's another octave of it, and then another couple notes of the same thing. That one, without getting deep into that, that one's the lowest common scale that will work with all 3 chords of a blues. So the simplest thing you can do when you play a blues is just use the pentatonic and just use your ear and try to follow some intuition and experiment. The next level, you're going to find you'll seemingly hit the wrong notes all the time. My students are constantly landing on the wrong notes. I do too. And to help with that, you have to A, know where the chord is, what chord you're on, and then try to line the scale up. So this is a way I call like the poor man's changes, which you don't have to change scales or anything to try to help align your scale with the chords. So what I mean by that is, let's look on the top end, the higher end of the scale. The A I have is on the first finger of pattern 1, and this is on the 5th fret of the high E string. If I'm looking for, luckily in the minor pentatonic, you have a root note for the 4 and the 5. That was the D and the E. In music, the numbers are the same. The 4th note in the scale is D. That's also the 4th chord in the key, which is D. So we can find those 2 notes. If we go down, here's A, G, here's an E. That's the 5 chord. So on the same fret as the 1 on the top strings here, if you've ever done that little thing, that's the 5th and the root. So we can think, here's the root of the 5th, and then below that, going musically down, on the 7th fret of the G string is the D for the D chord. So you could basically play through a 12-bar blues and line up the scale from each one of those notes each time. You also have the A here in the middle, that's on the D string 7th fret. There is still even an E, a D, and an A down here. Now, usually when I solo, I don't linger too much on the thick strings because it just kind of mushes together with the bass and the chords and stuff. The other notes kind of will lead above it a little bit. So if I put the blues on, let me start with the A on top, and I'll line up each chord change with the root note. 3, 4. There's the A. Now I'm going to go to the D note. Ready? Back to A. Now E to D. E, D, A. Let me do that one more time. A. Play a little idea between. Now I'm not going to land on the D till now, because there's the D chord. Back to 1. E, D, A, E. So that's a cool way to start the process of changes is you have to be here in your head with the chords and the notes at the same time. So you have to be comfortable knowing that the band is about to go to D7 when you do. You have to be in control of that. If you want to sound good in music and feel natural and inspired, play less and stuff, you have to know that part underneath where the chords are. Okay, the next level of playing the same shape is starting to adjust some of the notes within the framework of the pattern to better fit the chords. This is something I think Hendrix did, was very visual looking at it. So if I'm playing over this, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the A minor pentatonic is not actually the scale for any of the 3 chords in a blues. It works, but it's not technically the scale, which is kind of funny. The first thing you'll notice, if you put an A7 chord down, your middle finger here is on a note that's in between the pentatonic notes, right? That's kind of messed up. That's a C sharp note, and that's the major third of your A7 chord. And again, it doesn't matter if it's this A7, no, here's the C sharp here. So when you hit a C note in the pentatonic, while that A note, while the A chord is happening, excuse me, you're gonna have a little fight. Now usually that's a pretty good fight, but a cool thing to do is to pull that first finger down. Did you hear it go up? It goes up to the C sharp. You'll hear some blues guys just say, oh, pull on that to give it a little sweet sauce, man. They're playing the changes. That's just the way how they're cataloging it. So add a little sweet sauce there. Now, don't do that bend when it goes to the D7 chord. Because if you played like even this style of D7 or this D7, you'll see that it has a C natural note in there. Very important. So that's one of they call a guide tone line between the chords. Is on the 1 chord, it's the C sharp. Then it goes to the C. You can almost hear the chords right there just with that mode for the D chord. So if you highlight that little change between the A and the D, there's a few of those options in the blues, you can really start bringing out the sound of the changes without ever leaving the home pattern 1. Chords. Let's say if we put that D7 back. This is the bar chord version of an A7 form. Right, this is the D7 chord here. You'll notice my pinky is on the 7th fret. That's a very important tone. That's making this D a major chord. Now that note is not in the pentatonics. But if you just say, well, what if I take this G and I'll just move it over to the F sharp when the D chord happens, man, that's gonna be a sweet change. Why? Because when you're playing that D7 and you hit the G note, it's a cool color, but you have to expect what it's doing. It's a sus4 over the 4 chord. It's gonna cause a lot of tension and fight there. If you lower it to the F sharp, that's gonna bring it right into tone with the chord. That's another guide tone. You're looking just simply like that note moved over just for that chord. It goes back to G for A7, so you could go back up to the G. You could go between those two. This is stuff I learned by looking at Hendrix and learning his moves, and couldn't understand for the life of me how he was making some of these weird notes work. So for instance, in Red House, he does this in a different key. When he goes to the 5 chord, I couldn't understand that. He's going from this E, which is pattern 1, but he's hitting the F sharp, which was just from that D chord, that's not in the first pattern, and he's bending that up a whole step to a G sharp. Now that note, again, is right between 2 pentatonic notes of the A minor we were in. That's hard to do. So he's bending up because look, there it is in the E chord. So it's almost like if you can see the notes of the chord light up, you can use those as little fence posts that are moving on top of your A minor pentatonic. And it really makes a big difference. So if you're playing over the A, there's the C sharp, I'm pulling into the 3rd. On the top, I could actually bend that C up a half step. Right, you hear the major sound right there. Now again, I'm just going from the C to the C sharp, because that's a chord tone. You cannot do that over the D chord. Ooh, now that note's like the worst note. It goes from the sweetest note to the worst note if you're not paying attention. 1 note, 1 fret, subtle stuff, but huge. When you go to the E, again, I'm visualizing that chord. You can hear the chords in your playing. That was a big thing I heard from Pat Metheny, who used to come to school and talk to us a lot years ago. He said that if the band stops playing the chords, the audience should hear the sound of the chords in your note choices. And I was floored by that. So let's go back. Let me go back and let's go back to pattern 1. And I'll show you some of these little influences I make to go to the D and the E chords. Here's the blues again. So here's that major note. Right? Now if I drop it, that goes for the D chord. Now look, if I stay on this C note, it's clashing with that A chord, right? It's kind of ugly. So you want to make sure you nail that. All right, now coming back around again, let's go back to the A. Here's the turnaround 3. Here's the A again. Now here's the high note. Here's the F sharp. Back to that C sharp for the A. Now here's the E up to the G sharp. F sharp for the D chord. Again, keep imagining where you are in the form. A chord. Bringing out those A major sounds. Now the D, F sharp. There's the C sharp for the A. Here's the E. Now I can even over the D chord bend the F to F sharp. I'll do that when it comes up. Watch. That's great. Here's the E. So with just a little adjustments and a couple specific points like that, you don't have to do the whole fretboard just to map out one note for one change one time. The great thing is that feels the same no matter what key this moves in, so you can kind of take it along to other keys pretty easily. Musically, what were we doing? We were playing the changes. We were taking that A minor pentatonic and adjusting it to better fit the chord at the moment. That's playing the changes. So you can do this with one pattern. You can then do this with pattern 2 right above this, the A minor pattern 2. This is what I call like the king box. You can start adjusting the same concept, bending the C's to C sharps. Once you start, again, this was hard to keep track of just as a guitar player. Once I started thinking a little bit extra about the notes, it made it so much easier. Oh my gosh. Just thinking about what notes are in the chords and why they match, this stuff becomes quite simple when you get used to it. All right, again, thank you very much. My name is Suke. This is Lead Guitar Workshop. Please hit the subscribe button, the notification bell. Check out leadguitarworkshop.com. We have 5 books we've published about lead guitar methods we've done. I've been teaching for years in New York City here that I have had a lot of success with that I know you will too. I do lessons online. We have a lot of new stuff coming up. Stay tuned. Sign up on our mailing list to get our free ebook about exercise shells. And I'll see you guys out there, man. Keep playing. It's the best thing you can do.